Okay, John Rouse, one of our TAs, actually had an internship experience here, and so he was asked by his company to give a 10-second plug, so he's going to fulfill that commitment right now.
So actually, Mackenzie and I both interned at the same place. She did the year before, and I did. We both really enjoyed the company. It's a great experience if you like markets. It taught me a lot about the foreign exchange market. The company actually flew me out to San Antonio to go consult with some people out there. It was a great experience. Mackenzie went out to Florida. It's pretty tough to be able to go fly, but the company gives you certain expectations. So if you enjoy foreign exchange and want to learn more about the business, it'd be fun. And I also heard there's a rumor about pizza, so that's right after class today. Also, if you saw the PowerPoint, there's a lot of resumes for the BYU Bridge and a lot of applications that are due this week. If you have any questions about how to submit your resume or how to apply for a job through the Bridge, or if you tried and you couldn't do it, let me know. After class, I'll be here right after that. All right, thanks.
And you know what, can we just do a round of applause for the TAs, for John and Kenzie? I know, I really appreciate them a lot. So, a lot going on this week. How many of you have been to multiple information sessions? Are you finding them helpful in your quest? Yes. Okay. For those of you who have not been going, they're saying that they are helpful. I've sat in a couple. I think that they really are worthwhile. It's really, really important if you do want to apply to a company that you've gone to their information sessions. I've spoken with recruiters. They said, if they don't go to my information session, I don't think they're really committed, and I'm not really interested in talking to them. So please, if there's a company with an information session coming up that you're interested in, by all means go. If that means you have to miss this class, we understand. Just make it up by watching the video. You don't want to miss those opportunities to connect with the recruiters and those that are speaking at these information sessions. Club trips, I think that the drop for your resume was today at noon. Is there anyone that did not get theirs in that's still wanting to go? Oh, that's beautiful. That means, oh, more fun. Okay, so we'll talk after. Bloomberg certification, that is really an important thing for you to do, and Kim Smith's going to chat with you about that.
So I'm just going to be real quick and say it's a real important thing for you to do. But what we need you to do is certify as quickly as you can. There are 12 Bloomberg machines in room W237. That's in the new wing. And we're making the registration for general Bloomberg as a requirement. It's probably where a lot of you will be over the summer. You need to have access, or also during the school year, have assignments made for involved Bloomberg. In addition, we're asking you to think about doing it for fixed income and equities to see follow the markets. Any questions? Has anyone already done this? Any of you guys? Tell me, was it hard? Was it easy? What do you think?
Pretty solid.
Say it again?
It was really hard.
Really hard? How long did it take?
It took a long time. It wasn't super difficult, but it just took a long time because it's a new operating system that we're not used to. So you have to adjust the operating system and so it took a bit of few hours.
Okay, that's why we're making only the one required, the other one's just recommended. Okay? Anybody else, any other comments? Things you learned you want to share? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Delivered like I wanted Bloomberg.
Tell the difference. Oh, he wants you to go ahead and check it out.
Help to know what it was.
Blue, come on down. So just so you know, I am totally into learning on your own if you can, when you can. But I'll let you learn from our fellow students.
So I actually learned this. I went on
an investing internship with Professor Sugweeks. And what it is, it's a lot to do with investing, and it's all to do with the markets and securities and trading and things like that. So it's all the information that investors use, and they use this place called Bloomberg. Bloomberg is the business that takes all the data and makes it available to you. So when we talk about the Bloomberg machines, you have to have specific machines, or at least a specific login, so that you get access to that data. So whenever we're talking about Bloomberg, we're usually referring to the data providers who tell us about the stocks and shares and everything else like that. And as it said on the previous slide, it also talks about foreign exchange and basically everything to do with investing.
It's what you need to do for research. So I know that I just met with a student today, and he was required for his on-campus internship, so he's been doing the research on that. So thank you. Yes?
Do we just walk in there and there'll be a TA that'll help us do that?
You know, I have not done the system here. What's the process?
Schedule walk in. You could go into the library in the first level. There's the business TAs, and they have Bloomberg Terminal there, and they can teach you how to set up an account.
So they can't schedule it or anything.
So in the Tanner building, there isn't a scheduled TA, but in the library, on the first floor, in the business section, there is a TA that's always there out of Bloomberg Terminal. They have one there, and they can help you, and you can set up a time there.
Here in ours. So it is available 24 hours to be, you can use it 24 hours. Yeah, you have access to the room, but all of them are except for the Tanner ones. Just really fast. Okay, we have gone over the mock interview. Have any of you tried it on the bridge yet to do a mock interview? Okay, we talked a little bit about how you have to have what is it called? What you normally use for like when you do a chat, the webcam. So you have to have a webcam. And if you are having problems with it, have you tried it yet, John? So I've gone on the system, I've tried it, it's really simple to use. But if you're having troubles with it, then you can come into the Business Career Center and we'll help you with it, okay? The other study that we have is that we've got these 3 panelists coming. They're NAC members. Chemo Asplins from Huntsman, Fort, Spenlove, and our own Kim Smith is a NAC member, and he'll be representing markets and investment banking. So we want you to come up with a question for each of them, okay? Either specifically to them, so you have to do a little bit of research on the individual and their career path, or you can have a really good question just about the company that they've worked for, okay? All right. Okay, interview question of the week. I need 2 students to come down. Is anyone up for it today? Oh, we scared y'all. Okay, come on down. Come on down. It is a portfolio. So which is nice. And then we also have these gifts. What's your name?
Dylan.
Dylan. Okay, and your name?
John.
John? Okay, this is the question. You ready? Okay. Tell us about a time when you received constructive feedback that you did not agree with. And how did you handle that?
Well, I worked at a law firm in New York over the summer,
in New York. And so they run a very tight ship. And so I was on a project where we were working with some mortgage-backed securities, and so we were trying to save the client millions of dollars. And so I put together a system that I thought worked really well, and I thought it should run a certain way to pull up invoices so that we could track expenses. And my boss did not agree, and I think he didn't agree because he really didn't know how the system worked. And so he kind of let me have it for a little bit and said, this isn't what I asked you for. And so I didn't agree with it, and the way I handled it was I tried to explain to him, well, you asked me for a result, and I tried to give it to you the best way possible, and this is why it works this way, and this is why it wouldn't work the way that you wanted it. And it was my first time dealing with something like that in a professional setting, and so I have to admit it was difficult to remain calm, and I wanted to express my frustration, but I think doing it in a calm way, but firmly, and trying to help them understand what I did and why I did it, enabled me to get out of that situation and maintain a good relationship with my boss.
So over the summer, I was a financial planner intern at Evershore Financial Group in Orlando, Florida. And I really like Vanguard Mutual Funds. And for those of you who don't know what it is, just research Vanguard, amazing company. So my boss had asked me to allocate some clients' portfolio money to some mutual funds, pick some mutual funds from their preferred list. And so I went in, I did the research, used Yahoo Finance and some other resources, and I presented the list to him and made my recommendations, and I picked several Vanguard funds. Being a financial planner, he explained, these are not going to work. And I was like, what do you mean? I mean, these are the best return for the risk that I found. And he said, financial planners get paid based on front-end loads. And so I had to go back, and I did it immediately. I mean, I went back and just did the whole thing over again and presented it to him, and nothing further.
Okay, all right, everybody, heads down. Okay, those who want to vote for Dylan, raise your hand. Okay, and those for John? Okay. It's split again. Okay, so let me give this to you. You're the first one, and I'm going to give you one too. Come by my office. Okay? Good job, you guys. So I think it's really important when you're answering a question like this to share based on experience. You don't have to tell every detail if some of it may not be a part of it that you're proud of. I think this is where you talk about an experience that you had a good outcome with. And I think you can also talk theoretically, in the past when I've had that situation, this is how I've handled it, and this is how I plan to handle it in the future. Pretty much it should be, if your boss is recommending that you go a different route or wants to give you some constructive feedback, I think you need to accept it. I think humility is really important on this one. And you can definitely say, I went out about it for this reason, this way, but I really think that that's a really good idea, and let me go back and redo that, or let me get back to you on that. And then maybe if it's constructive feedback about a trait that you have that they feel that you could improve upon, I think in that case you would want to tell them you'll work on that, and probably even come back to them the next week and talk to them about how you've been working on that and you really appreciated their feedback. Okay? All right, well, we are so grateful to have Bill with us again today, and I'll just turn the time over to him.
Thank you all. I'm going to have to load the program. I'm sorry about that. We have been doing some mock interviews. I wonder why. And part of that, of course, deals with, sorry. Where are we? There we go. This is what we want. And what did I do that? What we're talking about today is interviewing and interviewing skills. Now, last week we talked about the world of resumes, and resume writing is, of course, a marketing process, right? We all learned that last week. So if I'm going to make a final, on a deal, if I'm going to sell a deal, I have to close it, right? Is that not something we talk about in deal-making processes? So what I want to emphasize today is that interviewing is a sales process. And you are going to sell yourself, in essence, when you go into the interview. Your marketing tool, your resume, worked to get you the interview. But the reality is that now you have to sell, and you are the product. We have our, there it is. Okay, Wall Street Journal a few years ago published an article when it was talking about MBA students, and specifically finance MBA students, and it said in the article that isn't it interesting that you spend 5 or 6 years to get to this point in your career or in your education, and in 30 minutes someone decides whether it counts. Because in most initial interviews, they're about 30 seconds long, or 30 minutes long, and they are going to determine whether you go on in the interview process and whether or not you may get the job. So one of the things that I want to point out to you is it's not just 30 minutes. It's every meeting that you have that you are selling and that you are bringing your abilities to a potential employee. So if you're going to a presentation, let's use this evening as an example. At 6:30, there's an opportunity for you to meet someone. So in that process, you now need to make that meeting count. So instead of just thinking about interviewing, think about your selling in every one of those circumstances. One of the things that we used to do when we would hold an event before our interviews at Price Waterhouse was that we would meet with all of the partners and all of the managers who were at the event. And we'd ask them, who did you see? Who was impressive to you? This was before the interviews ever happened. And we would say, okay, we're going to ask questions of that candidate about this issue that you were concerned with. And so every time we met with people, we were taking notes, we were looking at, and we were evaluating the candidates. So be aware of that and be ready. And here's part of the reason why. Because you never get a second chance to make a very good first impression. So we're going to talk a lot about that. Interviewing is about fit. And fit is what we're going to determine or try to determine in a first interview with you. Do you fit our organization? And fit is a lot more than just do you have the skill sets, do you have the knowledge. It's what's the culture of our organization compared to what you're reflecting as we speak. So I'm looking for you to sell to me your fit with my organization and with specifically my team, my work team. Okay, there we go. Do your skills fit the background of the area? So you're looking at investment banking. Do you know what the investment banking world is? Do you know what it is that investment bankers do? And do you have the quantitative skills and, more importantly, the sales skills? So investment banking is all about sales. And I had the managing partner of the San Francisco office of Goldman Sachs in my office one day, and he said, Bill, everybody in this company sells. my secretary sells. The mailroom clerk sells. So just understand that. So I thought that was pretty impressive and informative to let me know that. Now, the other bit is the organization's culture. If you look at, let me use two technical organizations, Hewlett-Packard and Intel. Intel uses a culture or a culture theme that they call confrontation or constructive confrontation. So their culture is one where if you come into a meeting with a good idea, they bring in a group of people to say, what's wrong with this? How can we correct this? And the point is, they attack the idea, not the individual. And you have to learn how to do that. But they do press on the idea that let's find everything that could possibly go wrong with this idea. And if you win that confrontation, you get the money, you get the support, and you get to run a product. On the other hand, Hewlett-Packard likes to brag that they're a collegial organization. And so what they do is when you bring a good idea to HP says, okay, we're going to bring a group of people together and we're going to look at that idea and we're going to find out what's wrong with it. But they do it in a collegial team environment, looking specifically at the team to say, what team can we do to make this idea better? And at the end, Intel gives you the money and says, go make a product. And indeed, we had actually a BYU electrical engineer who introduced the Quad 4 idea for a processor. Likewise, we had a BYU graduate who came to Hewlett-Packard and many years ago said, I think a good idea would be to produce a laser printer. And HP has made billions of dollars on that idea. The point was that the first one was given the instructions, go make this product work. In the Hewlett-Packard, it was, here's our team, here's the team that we'd like you to take and make the laser printer work. And one's a very, very team collegial environment, one is a little more constructive confrontation. And people they found don't work in both of those organizations because some people relate to constructive confrontation and some are much more in the collegial environment. So look and see whether you fit that culture of that organization. And how do you find that out? You talk to alumni, you talk to people who are experienced in both of those areas. All right, so what are they looking for in an interview? Again, fit. Now, am I looking for an exact mirror image of me? No, not really. But I am looking for how well you match what we do and what we're about. So let's talk about some really quick important things for the interview process. And number one, first impressions. Bill Lampton is a PhD who did a study on relationships of people and on interview processes. And he developed what is called the 7-11 rule. And what he learned in his study was that in the first 7 seconds that we meet people, we make 11 assumptions. And you may say, wow, that's really fast. But realize that some of these assumptions are very quickly assessed. So what's your educational level? What's your background? Competency, intelligence, trustworthiness, your family history. And in 7 seconds, I'm making those assumptions. The danger with all of this is, what Lampton found out was that many of these assumptions are wrong. And so what you need to do now in the remaining 29 minutes and 53 seconds is to convince them that here's what you should know about me, and here's what you may have assumed incorrectly. Another thing that Lampton figured out was that the longer you allow a person to hold on to those assumptions, the less willing they are to give them up. So you want to address things very quickly and think about what do I want them to know about my educational level? What do I want them to know about my competency? What about my confidence? And so you bring in and you help them change in the interview process those assumptions that they may have made that were incorrect. All right, more things about first impressions. Dress. Okay, you saw me walk up here. How am I dressed? What am I dressed to do? Dark suit, white shirt, business professional. Yeah, that's how I dress. That wasn't my intention when you would come and see me. So you think of me in terms of a business professional. If you're going to go for a job as a business professional, shouldn't you be dressed in that figure, in that look? I guarantee I was actually on Wall Street this summer, and they were very conservative, very well dressed. It was hot, it was sweaty, but suits were still the going thing. Now, let me just show you something that will kind of influence dress. And it's just something that, it's a demonstration of how you judge, how you may judge people based on their look. So what if I were to change my tie to that? What assumption did you make just by the look of that tie? This is a little wilder, that's what he said. It's more current, it's more contemporary, right? Change of the sides, it's not as wide. What if instead I were to wear this? Now you laugh. That's pretty bold, isn't it? Or ugly, in fact. I told you I was a tie collector. But the idea behind this is, what if I told you that it is based on an Aboriginal print? And if I were interviewing with you for a job in archaeology or in anthropology, perhaps that tie would be more appropriate, because that's the basis. Another one. Here, this one's great. So, great thing. Christmas Eve. Get closer up here. Somebody once said, you're a chilly server. Yeah, that might be. Can you see what's on that tie? Now let me turn it over and then you tell me what's on that tie. It's a Disney tie, and this is Mickey Mouse in that print, in that pattern. You have to kind of get closer, you have to look at it and see it. But the reality is, if I were interviewing with Walt Disney, perhaps this is the tie I want to wear. Again, change of tie, change of look. What does this do to me? More formal? Okay. Is it? It's narrow. It's silk. Think about that. Look at the different things that just the difference in a tie makes. So appropriate dress can take on a lot of figures. And you want to make sure that, how do you find out, by the way, what's appropriate dress for a location or for an office? Come on, speak. Asks the alumni, absolutely. This is kind of an interesting tie, and I'll just put it down here in front, but can you see what's on that tie? Winnie the Pooh, another Disney tie. But for those of you way back in the back, it's just kind of another old tie, right? Anyway, the idea behind this and behind that process is to understand that dress leaves an impression. So consider that as you're getting ready to go out on your interview. Another point, good grooming is very important. And grooming is, again, specific to the context of the interview. I may be groomed, haircut more conservatively. You all have different haircut styles. You all have different ways to prepare. One of our recruiters that has over the years been very strong on the grooming side is L'Oreal. And what do you think they expect as a grooming approach? Number one, that you use a L'Oreal product. And number two, that you are very, very current. So you need to be and look the way that L'Oreal would expect its customers and clients to look. So take that into account. More conservative in the business banking world, a little more current and fashionable as you go out into the advertising and into the companies that will hire you in finance, but whose companies themselves have a more contemporary look. So good grooming. Another thing about good grooming, when you go into that interview, remember, those are little rooms, and they tend to get hot. And I was actually interviewing once at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And my interview office, while small, had a window that looked out on the hill above the student where I was interviewing. And I could see a young man in a suit coming down the hill, and I could tell that he was probably my interviewee. Up the stairs he came, into the office, and I just have to explain that it smelled like he had run from the other side of campus. Pay attention to those things. You know, good grooming includes showers, it includes deodorant, it includes things that make you approachable in a hot, small environment. So pay attention to those kinds of things and be wise as you go there. What about perfumes and colognes? Suggestions? Any preferred colognes or don't wear them? That's probably a wise thing. Whatever you do, if you do insist on wearing something, you're worried about that, don't let it come into the room before you do. So you've got to pay attention that number one, some people are allergic to those scents, and be sensitive to that, but also I want to remember you, not remember that you smell, whether it was good or bad. So just be cautious about that process. All right, confidence. That's something that I think is very important in the first impression. If I'm coming up to you and I'm saying, hi, I'm Bill Brady.
Hi, I'm
Brian, nice to meet you. What kind of a handshake did I give you? A firm one. Did I break your knuckles? So it wasn't vice grip, it was just firm. And doing that rather than the, hi, I'm Bill Brady, the limp fish, don't do that. Please, be wise. We expect a firm handshake. We also expect in this North American interviewing that you look me in the eye. That at some point I have eye contact. Because that's a point that brings out trust, and it also says you're honest. When I look away from you, when I'm always looking down, I say, can I trust this person? Again, an impression, but an impression that you want to be firm. Look me in the eye, give me that confidence that you have. If you walk into a room and you shuffle in, or you're very timid coming into the room, that's going to leave an impression with me. What I want you to do is come in, be confident, and give me that firm but not overpowering handshake. All right. Same thing for energy and enthusiasm. I want to hire people who have energy. I don't want to hire people who I have to spark every minute. I'm looking for you to convey to me that you're enthusiastic, that you're excited to be here. It's not just another interview, it's the interview. And you want to work for my company and bring your energy to my company. So a big thing to pay attention to and be aware of. Now I want to talk a little bit about some distractions. When you go and are invited to an event, an information session, I want you to check and make sure that the invitation says spouse, guests, or children before you bring your children. Best story I can tell you is a few years ago, KPMG held an event down at Thanksgiving Point, and they invited spouses and interviewees. or guests. And one couple came, and it was a hoedown. So everybody was invited to come in the big belt buckles and the cowboy boots and the Levi's. So they all came, and one couple came, but couldn't find a babysitter for their small child. And so they brought the child with them. Number one, no invitation was made. The big mistake was that one of the activities that KPMG had provided was a mechanical bull. And the mechanical bull was still, there was no one on it, and this couple comes and sets their little infant on the mechanical bull. The next day, in fact, there was a phone call waiting on my voicemail. Bill, you know what one of your students did last night? They put their child on the mechanical bull. I had to help 4 partners recover from shock. The idea was they put the baby on a bull that the baby shouldn't have been on. Number one, they shouldn't have brought the baby, but number two, they did a very dangerous thing. The sad part of the voicemail was, would you please take John Smith off the interview list? The partners do not want to talk to him. It was an innocent mistake. They put the baby on the bull, took a picture, took the baby off the bull. But it was sufficiently scary, it was sufficiently risky that the partners decided this couple, this person shouldn't have an interview. Don't do that. Be careful with that kind of thing. Don't ever, if your spouse happens to be one of those people who is, walks in a room and everybody goes, wow. Perhaps you might think about not inviting your spouse to come along, even if they're on the invitation list. If they're a gregarious personality, somebody who can come in, remember that this is you that we're talking about. This is you who's being interviewed, not necessarily your spouse. And if all the attention goes to your spouse, you lose out. So you can tell your sweetheart or your significant other that I love you, you're wonderful, I want you to come along, but not to this event. And I know that sounds harsh and sounds rude, but again, don't let the spouse or the children become a distraction from you. You're the one who is to be the star in this interview process or this event. Okay? All right, let's go on. Cell phones. By all means, if you're in an interview and your cell phone goes off, you just lost points if I'm being interviewed. And if you look at your cell phone, you've lost even more because you're telling the interviewer that the cell phone is more important than this interview and this job. So silence your cell phone or don't even bring it into the interview with you. Don't fall victim to that cell phone distraction. Go ahead. Taking notes on your mobile device. First of all, I discourage taking notes unless they give you something that is noteworthy or that you should be noted. Most interviewers are going to be very uncomfortable if you've got out a scratch pad and you're writing down every question they ask. Likewise, if you use your mobile device to record them, they're going to be very upset, and even more, their general counsel is going to be very upset. At one time, we had cameras in the interview rooms on the fourth floor, and we finally took them out because not only did students complain, but the interviewer said, we don't want this on camera. We don't want this recorded. And they didn't even want the change. We said, no, it's only on when the red light turns on. We don't care. We don't. And some of them would walk into the room and push the camera lens so it pointed to the ceiling rather than could record it. So just be aware that that's an uncomfortable thing. Now, if they present you with a case question, or you say, may I record that question, or may I write that question down? Ask permission, and then they probably will say, yeah, your mobile device, please, feel free. But if every time you ask a question, or they ask a question, you write it down and then you respond, you're not going to appear to be very welcome in that interview process. So just as a caution. All right. Things that will help you make a good impression. Number one is make that interviewer the center of attention. He's interviewing you, and you, by focusing on him or her, will gain points in their estimation of what you are. You're attentive, you care, you looked at me, and we made contact. So make them the center of attention rather than always saying, well, I. Tell me, what did you do? I'm interested in this position. Can you tell me a little bit about your background? Use good listening skills in every interview. I used to ask questions in interviews that were intentionally leading a person, and I want to see how far I could actually lead them. So I start talking about leadership skills and leadership abilities. Tell me about your times that you've been a leader. What I was really finding out was, are you a follower? But I found out by saying, are you the bull in the china shop who's going to demand leadership, or are you someone who, when you are leading, are looking at your followers and listening to your followers, and how well would you relate that? So listen to the questions, be aware and answer the question, and then sometimes don't elaborate more than that. If you're like me, I have trouble remembering names. I mean, I meet so many people, sometimes it amazes me how short a name stays in my memory. So what I had to do was I had to figure out a way to help me remember a name. So we come up and I'm going to bother you right here. Hi, I'm Bill, and your name is? Logan. Logan, what are you studying? Finance. Well, Logan, what area of finance are you interested in? Equity research. And Logan, how are you going to apply that? Okay, so Logan, I remember now because I said his name 3 times. And we found that it's just a slight trick, but if you'll speak Logan's name 3 times, or the name of the individual, and try to, I'm not going to just go Logan, 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 but indeed, if I remember, I try to repeat his name, then Logan, I'll try and remember who you are, and that might help me at least through the short period of conversation to remember that Logan is in finance, in equity research. When you're interviewing, be really careful about humor. Not that you shouldn't use it. You can laugh at things, you can do things. You can enjoy someone's conversation. But one of the things that you don't want to be is the joke of the day guy. Oh, did you hear about it? That's not appropriate for it. And by the way, don't be afraid to laugh when they make even a lame joke. It's okay to relate to them and to have fun, and actually don't forget to smile in an interview, and that's sometimes very hard. But just be careful with the humor, and especially where that humor involves sarcasm. It's just something to be cautious about. Now, this is an interesting point. In relationships with people, you don't always have to be right. And what's more, they don't have to be right to still build a good relationship. So for instance, if I'm talking to someone about the accounting program at BYU, well, it's the #1 accounting program in the Wall Street Journal and in the Professional Accounting Report. You don't need to step in and say, no, it's actually #2 in Professional Accounting Report. If they've made a point, and it doesn't matter whether it's 3% or 3.2%, it's close enough. So rather than being 100% right, or now if they're wrong and they say Jim, oh, I mean Logan, correct Logan. So make me know that it's you. But you don't have to be exactly right, and you may be losing goodwill by trying to bring me to 3.2% over the 3%. And then finally, your words really do matter. And that is, when you speak, if you speak in an interview about the girls that you know in your team, I may be quite offended because I think your team is made up of women. If you talk about relationships, listen to the words that you're using and use very, very professional language. And the other thing that I'd like to wipe out of many of our vocabularies is like. I've been through a number of interviews that I like. And try to lessen that as you interview. All right. Intelligence, likability, this is something you're going to display. I'm looking for you to give me sound ideas. I'm going to ask you questions that will help me know how sound your ideas and how well you think. I'm looking for pride in your past performance. I want to see the things that are important, that you've been proud of. And I don't want to hear negatives in almost any case at all. I want you to know about current events, and especially those current events as they relate to my company. So be prepared, do your homework, be ready to talk about the things that are there. And again, smile. I have been in interviews where the candidate was, yes, no, I can't, yes, oh, that's funny. Yeah, a smile is electric. It really is. And if I come up to you and I'm smiling, whether I'm ready to hit you with a killer question, the fact that I'm smiling, it's contagious. And it's hard to keep people from not thinking well of you if you just give a smile. Now, I'm not saying that no, we're not Happy Gilmore smile, but we are trying to do that. Now, one other thing that happens in interviews is I want you to take control if the interviewer fails. So if they want to talk about the football game and the football team, you say, oh, it's a great team. I'm so excited for what they're doing. And we've got a great win-loss record right now, and we've only got 29 minutes left. Would you like to know something about me? Because just like the team, I'm a winner. Bring it back. All right, body language. How do you sit in an interview? How should I sit in an interview? Good question. Relax. Am I supposed to sit forward? Is that right? Why? Say it again. Engaging. It's engaging. Okay. What if I'm here? Should I be stiff? Should I be? Can I fold my arms? Can I? What's my human? Go ahead.
Well, it's something to be open and natural. Not only does it show that you're confident, but it shows that you can talk to the person more like they're equal, and you'll be able to work with them and see their experience. You're not the certified subordinate that's like yes sir, no sir, and can't, approach somebody and share your ideas.
Okay. Those are all good thoughts. My suggestion is look at the interviewer. How is the interviewer seated? If the interviewer is back in the chair and comfortable, you could be back in the chair and comfortable. If the interviewer is up on the edge of the chair, you better be up on the edge of the chair. Now, a couple of things that just to warn you about the interview posture. Again, if you're reflecting the interviewer, just reflect them. If they go like this, you don't have to go like this. But the idea is reflect the interviewer and be back with them. Now, another thing that can happen in an interview, and I don't mean to intimidate you, but when you want to make a point in an interview, when you want someone to remember something that you say, I want you to remember this point. And you notice I came 3 feet is about as close as we can comfortably be. But if I get in that 3-foot zone, her eyes just went wide. Yeah, I'm seeing her back here, she's got it ready to come. And the idea behind that is that when you want me to remember something, you get my attention. Especially if you've got that 2:30 in the afternoon interview. You know, food coma set in, it's all, but you just come into their space, make your point, and then come out. And then it's relaxed, it's comfortable, they're in it, they remember. And so that's just a hint on how you would look and how you might stand yourself in an interview process. I want you to show me enthusiasm. I want you to show me that you're excited about the potential of this job. I think we talked about this last week, that there are really only 3 interview questions. 1, can you do the job? 2, do you love the job? And 3, can we tolerate working with you in this job? So if you can prove to me these 3 things, you've answered, and I will ask you a lot of questions to find this out. But that convinces me that we should work together. You're going to be asked about your goals, your education, your behaviors, your skills, your attitudes, and your interests. Those are key things that we see in lots of surveys about what people are asked in interviews. You all have this on your learning suite, so I'll just not go into each one of these. But this was a study that was done by Mary Crane, and Mary Crane is an executive recruiter, and she came up with this set of things that were what employers were looking for. It's pretty interesting. I want you to show the employer that you can think. I want you to show the employer that you can make a contribution. And then I want you to answer this question. Why am I hiring you? So I'm an employer. Why would I hire you? Why in the world do I hire anyone? And the answer to that magic question is to make us money or to make us successful. So I might be a nonprofit. So always keep in mind the bottom line, because that's what you've got to prove to me that you can do. So that's where we are. That's where we come. I love this scripture about interviewing. In fact, it's about the job search process. Use boldness but not overbearance. Bridle your passion. What does the bridle do? It controls. It doesn't say you don't have passion. It just says you control it in every way, in everything that you do. And then, again, it's telling us, do your homework, be prepared, you're ready to go. All right. There are a number of different types of questions that you'll be asked. We don't have time to go into all of these, but again, the information is in your in the learning suite with all of the slides. Quick things, employer knowledge, again, do your homework. Open-ended questions. These you can't answer yes or no. Here's a set of just some ideas and questions that you might run into. A lot of you are going to have skills questions. These are the desired skills that came from an employer survey by the National Association of Colleges and Employers. Behavior-based questions are probably the ones that you're going to run into more frequently than any. And these are hard questions. They're examples. I wanted to give you a little background on this. We use what we call the STAR method to answer these questions. So you describe the situation, you said what needed to be done, you tell what you did, and then what were the results of your actions. I want to prove to you that this is an ancient way of asking the questions. The first thing that we do, if you go to verse 32 of Samuel 17, this is the story of Goliath and David. And in that first section, David comes and he says, "Why are you afraid of this giant? What's going on?" And so he goes to Saul and he basically says, "Hey, I can do this. I'll take on Saul, or I'll take on Goliath." And Saul says, "Wait a minute. What do you mean?" So 33, basically, in 33, he says, how can I hire you? And how can I make you fight Saul? Because Saul's very skilled in war. He's grown up in war, and he's bigger than you are. So David then kind of responds to the question. He says in 34, he says, when I was a lad, I was out tending my father's sheep, and a lion and a bear came, and I knew I needed to do something. So I went after the bear, I went after the lion, and I chased him and took the lamb away and slew him. So that was the result, was that he slew the lion and he slew the bear. And if I can slay the lion and I can slay the bear, then I can slay this Philistine. So that's the potential value that he added. And finally, Saul says, okay, I understand. Let me give you my armor. And David says, I don't need the armor. All I need is the support of God. And the last sentence of 37, Saul says, then go and do it. And he hires him. So that's how old behavioral interviewing is. Quick sample question. Tell me about the most frustrating person with whom you worked. What made it so? What was the approach? You heard two very good questions that as Tina was introducing. Again, I'm just going to go through these very rapidly. Case questions are the ones you'll get with consulting. There's no right backgrounds, a lot of information here. Here are some sample case questions, and then finally, let me just give you an answer. So how much does the 747 weigh? Every case question, you can actually get clarification. Don't be afraid to ask another question again. Don't ask what's the answer. Ask fully loaded and ready to fly. Oh, by the way, what model? Okay. Now that I know that you want fully loaded, ready to fly, and it is the biggest model 747, let's make some assumptions. This is where you get out your mobile device. This is where you get out a pencil and paper. And you say, let me just walk through this. The first item is passengers. The second item is crew. We give it a unit weight. We total it. Baggage. All of the things that might make up the weight of a fully loaded 747. Fuel, huge weight. And the airframe itself, and we total it up. Does it matter what the answer is? Not really. We test the answer to make sure it's close. But the reality is, they want to see this, not this. And just so happens, by the way, that the maximum takeoff weight of that model 747 is. So we were pretty close. I know, I worked backwards, but that's okay. All right, puzzle question. This is a Microsoft question. Look at the whole picture. Every year I get somebody said, well, he must have planted them, he must have, because if I'm buying them at $4 and I'm selling them at 25 cents each, what's the net result? I'm losing $1, right? So how can I be a millionaire? Well, only if I was a multi-millionaire before I started. Twist the question, that's the puzzle. Very good. All right, stress questions, take a look at these. You're going to get some of them, and work with each other to find out how you're going to answer that. Greatest weakness question, David. Why should we hire you? How are you better than another candidate? Don't get pulled into that interview trap. That's wanting you to compare. What you say is, oh, I know that Sue just interviewed before I did. Sue was on my team. She is wonderful. She has some great potential, some great capabilities, but this is an interview about me. Let's talk about my capabilities because it's your job to make the comparison. I think I would hire Sue if I had a chance. So don't get negative. Be careful about that. And then a little bit on illegal questions. Be careful about them. And again, consider answering the question. If it isn't blatantly illegal or it isn't, why did the interviewer ask? And you can always ask that of the interviewer. Is this important for this job? And if the interviewer isn't smart enough to realize that the reason you're asking is this important for this job is that it's an inappropriate question, you come and visit me in career services. We're going to get a lawyer, we're going to sue and make a lot. No. Okay, when you're finished, want you to always include something like this in your interview. I really want to work for you. I'm excited about this job. I'm excited about the potential. And one of the things that you can ask them is, do you have any hesitations about my ability to do this job? And they're probably going to answer, well, no, not really, but we're going to look at a lot of people. You say, I just want you to know that I have no hesitation about considering an offer for you. And what do we do in sales? We close the deal. Okay, I'll let you go through these again. Sorry, there's always too much stuff. What I want you to do is put your foot in the door just like a good salesman does. And the way you do that is when they say, do you have any other questions? You say, no, I really don't. But if I do, may I call you? And 99% of the time they will say yes. And when they do, you now have permission in 2 weeks when you haven't heard anything to say, hi, this is Bill Brady. You know, we interviewed a couple of weeks ago. And you said that if I had any questions, that it would be all right to call you. My question is, do you need anything more from me to assure you that I'm the right person for this job? And you did it with their permission. Don't be afraid of it. Go in. All things said, most important thing that you can do after every interview is say thank you, send a thank you note, and we hope that that's always followed. Thank you very much for your patience.
That was fantastic. So there are various areas that we're going into in finance. If you are going for a corporate finance job, you'll probably get asked just kind of cash flow question. If you're going, it just depends on what area you're going into or the different kinds of technical questions you'll be asked. And this is where the importance of the clubs come in. They are going to prepare you. If you want to go to iBanking, they will prepare you for those iBanking interviews. Corporate finance, markets the same way. I had lunch today with 6 different interviewers from NZIP advisors. And I said, please share with me feedback from the students you've been interviewing today. And none of them were new because they were all the seniors. But I will tell you, they had a lot of feedback. And Brian Sudweeks was there, and he really, really appreciated the feedback. A lot of the feedback was, the students don't know enough about what's going on in the market today. They're not reading the Wall Street Journal. It's obvious. They don't know what the importance of the impact is of these various current events, if they are reading the Wall Street Journal, to the various industries. So what does it mean that that war is happening there? What's the impact of that? So kind of going that next level, right? So go to the clubs. They will help prepare you for these kinds of questions so that you can come off as very intelligent, because you all are, and ready and able to dive into that kind of work that you're applying for. It's great seeing you today. If you have any questions about applying or those kinds of things on the bridge, come down and talk to John. Otherwise, we'll see you next week.